The goal for today is to do two things. It is to write each equation in factored form. Another word for factored form would be intercept form. Write each equation in factored form and then identify the roots. So 2 steps. All right, let's start with example number 1. We'll start with some easy one. So y equals x squared minus 25. This right now is in standard form. Everything I provide you will start in standard form, and our goal again is to rewrite it in factored form and then identify the roots. Okay, so 1 can be broken up into 1 times 1. X can be broken up into x times x, and 25 can be broken up into 5 times 5. And because we have subtraction, then we are allowed to take the 1 and the 1, done, and an x and x, they stay in front, and a 5 and 5 in back. 1 is addition, 1 is subtraction. If you FOILed this out, front, outside, inside, last, and you simplified, this is what you would end up with. So factored form, done. Now, how do we identify the roots? Right here, as long as this number is a 1, one root is negative 5. It's the opposite of what you see. As long as this is a 1, the other root is positive 5. There is our roots. Remember, another word for roots is solutions. X-intercepts, real roots, they're all interchangeable. Okay, going on to our next one. Example number 2. Y equals 49 minus 100x squared. This is in standard form. Let's see if we can factor this. Let's see, remember, not everything is always factorable, so let's check. So this breaks into 7 and 7, this breaks into 10 and 10, and this breaks into x and x. And we have subtraction, so we can continue. 7 is our in front, 10s are in back, and attached to each 10 is an x. 1's a positive, 1's a minus. 1's adding, 1's subtracting. If you FOILed this out, you'd end up with this answer. This is factored form. Do you notice how in front here the coefficient was 1, and I told you you could just take the opposite sign of this? Does everybody see that? Eyebrows, do you have your glasses with you?
No, I forgot them.
Can you step front a little bit closer so you're not lost? And then you can go, you're going to get wrinkles doing this. Okay. All right, so here's how this works. I'm going to teach you the quick way of doing it. You ready? Write x equals and x equals. You're going to put the opposite sign of this down, opposite sign of this, and then, got that so far? Now here's the tricky part. Let's come over to the here so we can see how we can do this quick. So I write it equal, and then I subtract 7, I think I'll do it the slower way here, just to help you out, and divide by 10, so I don't make a mistake, negative 7 tenths. Here I'm going to take this one, 7 minus 10x equals 0. I'm going to subtract 7, divide by negative 10, divide by negative 10. But here, the answer is going to be a positive 7 tenths because they're both negative. There are our real roots, and here's our factored form. Okay, next problem. All right. Y equals 9x squared plus 12x plus 4. Let's check if this is factorable. Not every quadratic formula or quadratic equation is factorable. Okay, so I want to think of two numbers that multiplied to give us 36. Two numbers that multiplied to give us 36, and they somehow combine to give you a positive 12. So I'm going to go one by one, and I'm like 1 and 36. Okay, multiplies but does not combine. let's say 6 and 6, multiplies to give you 36, and they also combine to give you 12. So I get to go y equals x plus 6 and x plus 6. Whenever the leading coefficient is different than 1, we do bottoms up. That means you take this number and you put it underneath, bottoms. Okay? Now some of us can easily reduce this in our head. Others prefer to use a calculator. But you're going to take 6 divided by 9, hit math, fraction, enter, enter, and you'll see the fraction reduces to 2/3. So I'll rewrite them both. All I did is I've reduced this. Remember, there's 2 steps, 2 things you want to accomplish with each problem. First is write it in factored form, and then the second thing is to identify the x-intercepts, or the real roots, the solutions. So before I'm done, bottoms up means that when I rewrite this, if there's a number on the bottom after you've reduced it, you push it up. 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2. This is factored form. What is the answers? Because the number in front is a 1, x is negative 2/3, and x is negative 2/3. When the answer is duplicated, you only have to write it down 1 time. Also, this is not incorrect, but does anybody know another way you may see this answer? Since it's the exact same thing twice, you may see it written like this. Either form is just fine. Okay, next up. All right, so let's go with y equals x squared minus 6x plus 9. X squared minus 6x plus 9. So everything you were doing right now is on a blank piece of paper. Everybody knows that, right? The yellow paper's for later. Okay, so here we go. What multiplies to give us a positive 9 and combines to give you a negative 6? Anybody? Negative 3. Negative 3 is awesome. So let's go x minus 3 and x minus 3. Okay, since the leading coefficient is a 1, you don't have to do bottoms up. Leading coefficient is 1, you don't have to do bottoms up. This is in factored form. It's an equation equivalent to the standard form equation, so it has to start with y equals. Okay, and by the way, another way you may see this written is x minus 3 quantity squared. Now, when this number is a 1, it's simple. Here are the answers. Opposite 3. Since it's a 1, opposite 3. If it's duplicated, you only have to write it down once. Okay, next up. Y equals 5x squared plus 5x minus 10. Couple different things we can do here. One is we could factor out some numbers, and that may help us. We could factor out some stuff. So let's try that. Y equals, let's factor out a 5 because each one of these numbers is divisible by 5. That would leave us with 5 divided by 5 is 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And negative 10 divided by 5 is negative 2. Two numbers that multiplied to give us a negative 2 and combined to give us 1. What would be those two numbers? Negative 2 and positive 1. Okay, agreed they multiply, and oh, but they don't combine to give you a positive 1. Close.
2 and negative 1?
Positive 2 and negative 1. Let's try that. Positive 2, negative 1. They combine to give you, sorry, they multiply to give you negative 2, combine to give you 1. Okay, we're good to go. Because the leading coefficient is a 1, I don't have to do bottoms up. This is factored form. Factored form is equivalent to standard form. It's an equation that has to start with a y equals. Okay, what is the answer? Because this is a 1 in front, one answer is negative 2. Because there's a 1 in front, the other answer is a positive 1. These are the real roots, the x-intercepts, the solutions. This is the factored form of the problem. You have a red cup and a green cup. Be honest with me right now of your understanding of how to do this. Okay, here's your next one. Okay, although there is nothing wrong with using a negative, some students prefer not to use that. So I'm kind of one of those people. I prefer to factor out this -1. So when you factor out a -1 out of this trinomial, it just changes the signs. So negative divided by negative is a positive, positive divided by negative is a negative, and a negative divided by negative is a positive. So what multiplies to give you a +1 and combines to give you a -2? Anyone? -1, -1. Because the leading coefficient is a 1, we don't have to do bottoms up. So this is the factored form. It's equivalent to the standard form. It's an equation that starts with y equals. Another alternative way to looking at this may be like this. Because you have the exact same parenthesis written twice, you may see it in this form. Okay? What are the answers? Since there's a 1 in front, one answer is 1, and the other answer is 1. Remember, if you see the same thing twice, you only have to write it down one time. Give me 1 second. All right. So I'd like you to take out the piece of paper that is orange. I'm tired and it's yellow, not orange. And I'm going to write down right here, so I don't waste one, I'm going to write down exactly what the problem was. And we are going to start doing it, first of all, using the method that we've just practiced. So, take a calculator if you don't know this in your head, and multiply, please don't say it out loud, please multiply -16 times 5. Anybody have an answer for me? -80. So I want to know what multiplies to give us -80 and combines to give us a +79. Anybody?
80 and -1.
Oh, let's see, 80 and -1. Okay, multiplies good and combines. Okay, great. So here we go. Y equals x plus 80 and x minus 1. Now here's the kicker. Because the leading coefficient is not a 1, I have to do something called bottoms up. Bottoms up says take this number and put it underneath. Now I need to reduce this, so take your calculator and divide. 80 divided by 16. Do you get a nice integer answer?
Yeah.
What is it? Okay, and is it positive or negative based on the signs you're seeing?
Negative.
Okay, we're good to go. Now, negative divided by negative is a positive here. And I'm going to come back to this step in a second. Just know that right here, at this point, I'm going to be able to get the answers. Factored form says you have to take it one step further. Bottoms up means once you've reduced, if there's something on the bottom, you're going to push it up. So 16x plus 1. This is factored form. It is an equation. It's equivalent to this. It's an equation. It's equivalent. Starts with y equals. What is the actual answers? X equals 5. X equals -1/16. Those are the actual answers. They're opposite of the signs. This is factored form.